the first talk of the morning. I got 2 hours of sleep, but I'm here. I guess that's part of the important part. I hadn't planned on giving this talk if nobody showed up, so thank you. So I want to start out, this is where to start when your environment's fucked. The idea behind this came from when I was leaving one organization, went to a new job in higher education, and walked in, and it was just a nightmare. And it wasn't the first time it had happened. You know, other jobs where you walk in, they have no security program, no idea what security is. So this is for all those people that might not have the background or experience to go into an organization like that and even know where to start, because you go in and, you know, you might be the only person, you might be, you know, in with people that have been there for 30 years and are not, you know, doing a whole lot. Or, I mean, you could have a good team too, but then you wouldn't really need this talk. It's for that premise where there's so many times we'll walk in and just everything's fucked, and how to go down the path of, all right, what do I do? I can't just put out fires all the time. I actually need I need a laundry list of what to look for. So with most of my stuff, it starts most of my ideas start as blog posts first, and then they turn into talks. And oh, this is me. And then this one's actually turning into a book. So this is the official title. It's going to be a long version of this talk, obviously. About 20 chapters. I'm going to go over some of those now. But back to about me. So my name's Amanda, InfoSystir. I do a lot of blue team stuff right now, mostly regarding installs with Splunk, and kind of working with the companies that we implement Splunk at to let them know how best to use it and other bad things that they're doing on their environment that they probably shouldn't, not even when it doesn't have to do with Splunk directly. So this should be out around March next year through O'Reilly. If you have any suggestions on animals for the cover, I'm taking suggestions. The narwhal was already taken, so is the honey badger. Those were my top two. The other one that I'm thinking of, I think it's the vampire fish. It's the one that's in the Amazon that'll swim up a dick and attach itself. I just wanted a really badass animal for the cover. Next. So some of the stuff that you should start with are the free and easy. So many people, whether you're doing defensive consulting, offensive consulting, whatever you're doing, you can go into a place and, all right, maybe they asked for a pen test because they want a compliance check mark, but they don't need one. This is maybe something that you can hand them and say, you know what, next time, give it a year. We need to take some time apart. You don't need a pen test yet. You should do all this stuff. And one of the biggest hurdles is getting C-level buy-in, right? So if there is no security program, you don't know where to start. So they're not going to just say, here's a couple $1 million, go buy some Blinky boxes and do security. That's not, for the most part, that's not going to happen. If it is, great, but for the most part, that's not going to happen, especially if it's a smaller organization. They're, you know, InfoSec and IT in general is a cost center. You want to be able to show your due diligence, that you're actually doing everything that you can before going and asking for money. So you could actually start this. I should have started this before I took that one job and actually done some recon on the company more than I had, and then I would have realized that they had think it was like 3/16s and a couple /15s on Joden. Like their printers had public addressing. You could access their SQL databases from the internet. Like, it was really, really, really bad. If I had wanted that kind of job, maybe I should have, and I would have seen that before I had taken it. Maybe I would have changed my mind, because I'm like, you know what? They have nobody in InfoSec, and they obviously are having some problems. So it depends on if you want to take on that big of a project or not. This is a really cool website that I found. Somebody had tweeted it out the other day. OSINTframework.com. It has a little bit more on it than you would need to do potentially for your company, at least right away. But there's a lot of free different resources on OSINT related activities that you could do before you even work at a company. During the interview process, maybe. Kind of see what their threat profile is before you start working there. It's another thing, just like I was talking about, asset management is key. It's probably one of the things that nobody can do correctly, because, it gets pushed by the wayside. Nobody realizes it's as important as it is, because it's a gigantic pain in the ass. But how are you going to know what you need to secure if you don't know what's on your network? I see companies all the time that have reinfections of Configure or Blast or whatever on their network. They don't know where it's coming from. They just keep on repatching the boxes, and they keep getting reinfected because they don't know what's actually on their network, whether it be too big or whatever, but they don't have a firm grasp on what's actually out there, or as far as built with goes, they don't even know what's public facing. I don't know, our web app guys do that. Like, we don't touch that box. All right, well, maybe it's dual homed and completely open to the internet, and a super easy foothold on the inside of your network. You wouldn't know any of that unless you were able to look at it for yourself, and go down that path without somebody else having to either tell you or pop the box first. So another really cool tool, I guess this really doesn't fall under free and easy because Multigo is really expensive. Kind of does the same thing. There's a free and open source tool called ReconNG that I'll cover in a little bit that kind of does the same thing. You can run different scans on your websites or your IP address block, people, whatever. But it kind of gives you an idea of what's out there. It'll look for documents. It's kind of just a pretty visualization of all the information that you want to try and get out there. So this is ReconNG. It's like it's built in the command line, kind of like Metasploit is. Kind of uses the same command infrastructure, written by Tim Tomes, really cool guy, and it's not as pretty as Multigo. It's not going to give you all the nice graphs, and you can't right-click and scan or anything like that. But it does give you quite a lot of information, and this is another step towards asset management. You might not actually know where all these domains reside. So being able to know what to look at next from that perspective is a good first step. Another one's the harvester. When I had implemented a user education program, I use this. It will go out, it will scrape LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, and look for yourdomainhere.com email addresses. And that's what's public facing. That's what is going to be the most easily accessible email addresses that are going to be attacked the most. It'll kind of give you an idea of where to start. Your user education first off. A lot of times, your marketing people, your CFOs, they're going to be targeted the most. You don't want to only focus on them, obviously, but being able to know who's being targeted the most is all good, free, and easy step too. Kind of gives you an idea, a little bit to add on to, I don't want to say asset management, but you get the idea. All right, so this is where I can do this. I've never done a live demo before in a talk, and it's not a big one because I want to start out small. So Shodan was created by John Matherly. Your goal should be to have as few possible devices show up in Shodan as humanly possible. If you have a web server, yes, it's going to be out there, but your printers shouldn't be on there. Your SQL databases, your Active Directory servers, like that stuff should not show up in Shodan. You might find that you didn't realize everything that was public facing is, and this is definitely going to tell you. I've had people that, like customers that have come to us wanting to block scans from Shodan so it doesn't show up. You realize it doesn't make any difference, right? All right, let's see if this works. All right. Oh, shit. Yay. So put your IP address block in here. See what's out there, and go from there. You're just adding, all of these steps are adding to a laundry list of things that you can start looking at. Gathering all of your information and knowing what you have out there. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to start down an intelligent path when it comes to designing your security program. That wasn't really much of a demo, but I said I'd start slow. He also has a really cool book that you should go buy. It'll teach you a bunch of different commands that you can run on Shodan. I think it's like $5 or something. It's just a PDF download that he self-published. Totally worth it. Very, very good reading. And you get constant updates or whatever to it too. So there's a link for his book. After you've done all of this and started down the path of being able to show, your due diligence when it comes to information security, you don't want to piss off upper management, right? You want to be able to go to them, present your research, and say, this is what I'm looking to do. We need to start down a path to fix some of this stuff. This is what I've been able to find without any access so far. So, once a lot of passive information gathering, when people are out there doing active information gathering, they're going to find a lot more than I did. So being able to tactfully explain that to your C-levels is going to get you a little bit of a step up. I know it depends. I've seen a bunch of different companies that can handle this different ways. Some, I was lucky enough, I worked at a place that our CEO used to be a CIO, so he kind of knew already how important it was. A lot of people don't have that, I don't think. So being able to let them know, and not use FUD. Like, you don't want to say, oh my God, the Chinese are coming, when you can actually tactfully explain to them what the real risks are. And then being able to work with them to create a plan of where you need to go next is a great starting point. I'm not going to read all that, and I hate putting giant quotes. But I really like this quote from the Internet Security Alliance Guide. But TLDR, fix your shit, because script kiddies are going to get into it anyways if you don't. So now on to more free and easy stuff. I had a really hard time convincing that education company to let me buy a vulnerability scanner. They hadn't done any vulnerability remediation. They created their own in-house apps. Just, you know, ridiculously flat network. They turns out, like, the first couple weeks that I worked there, I found out that, so they would provide MSSP type services to different schools, right? So there's main data center, and then there's a whole bunch of different schools off of it. Completely flat. None of the schools were in the same district even sometimes, and they were all connecting back. There was nothing in between the schools and the data center. Like, if all a student would have to do was know how to connect to any port, and they're going to be able to get in, because they had no way of separating any of that out. Not that a vulnerability scanner would tell you any of that, but that gives you kind of an idea of where they were as far as you know, depth of their security program. I had the pleasure, I guess I could say, of being an Active Directory admin, like Windows admin, for way too many years. So I was in charge of doing group policy control, group policy objects, completely tearing it down and rebuilding that from scratch. It's amazing what you can accomplish in a Windows environment with group policy, right? What we focused on doing was setting a base image, right? So you're cranking out Windows computers to whoever all the time. Being able to create a base image with an already locked down local group policy. So that way, if Joe's computer somehow ends up not on the domain anymore, or he takes it home or whatever, those lockdown policies are already in place, and you don't have to worry about, you have to worry about less, right? So there's a lot of good practice guides out there on group policy management, you know, as far as, you know, setting good password policies, that kind of stuff, turning off scripting. As few as possible domain admins. It's always great to walk into a place and they're like, oh, everybody in IT is a domain admin, because they didn't care to find out what permission levels they needed to install app A. They're like, oh yeah, fuck it, you can be domain admin. It'll work then, right? Like, sure, run your Tomcat service as, you know, domain admin. Who cares? Getting away from that's really difficult. If you have the benefit of starting over and being able to, like, start a fresh domain, which that would be great, but that never happens. Being able to only give the needed access, because you want to do least privileged across the board. Being able to get to the spot is really difficult, because you have all of those apps that are running off of domain admin. You have, you know, people that don't realize how much power they have when using it. I accidentally had I didn't do it, but we had a vendor that had been given domain admin access and promoted an application server to domain controller. How does that even happen? Like, that's a horrible idea. So vendors shouldn't normally be domain admins either, unless that's what you're paying them to get. This is a cool nmet script that I found when I was writing the book. will find all open shares on your network. So you could have a bunch of open shares out there with a lot of really, really cool information. This will find them all for you. Obviously, you know, get that approval before you run any of the stuff. Smart free and easy. So disabling telnet or alerting on its use. I know there's a lot of legacy devices that you can't really disable telnet on, but being able to know when it's being used and working to get off of the legacy devices that still use telnet is a good free. Well, I mean, if you have to replace the device, I guess it's not necessarily free, but it's easy. Locking down logins over HTTPS. So this is from one of the most embarrassing experiences so far in my my short InfoSec career, is I did the SECTF at DEF CON last year. They kind of give you a target and they say, here, go find all this OSINT information about the target. And then you actually have to get up on stage and call them and try and get a bunch of questions answered, and SE people in this little box in front of all these people. I did horrible. Thank God they're not recorded. If any of you were there, I apologize. But this was from the OSINT work that I did. Like, I could connect. I mean, their cert's obviously not good on this F5 device, and you can connect to it from anywhere. And I didn't try the password because you weren't supposed to. But a lot of people will have that kind of stuff out there with the default credentials on it too. Not storing plain text passwords. Also at the healthcare place that I worked at, we had one of our network admins. All of the passwords were stored in an Excel file. It was password protected though. That's not a good idea either. There are so many free password management tools out there. Yeah, they might not be, the enterprise level that you need, but you need to start somewhere. You can't store that stuff in a plain text. No open Wi-Fi. Also worked at a place that had our help desk got a call one day. Lady said her Wi-Fi wasn't working. So like, all right, ma'am, what room are you in? We'll come up and help you, get connected. She's like, oh, no. I'm on whatever street. Like, I'm letting you know that I can't connect anymore. So, I mean, she's been getting free Wi-Fi for a while. Being able to lock that down is going to help out a lot. And being able to separate I'll talk about, like VLANs and segmentation later too, but being able to not have your public Wi-Fi accessible to your internal Wi-Fi is also a good thing. And all this stuff has been fixed, so if you dox me and you know where I worked, it's all fixed already. Our open Wi-Fi was getting DHCP from our domain controllers, and was not it was segmented off in the fact that it was on a different VLAN, but that was it. And then no shedding ports that are unused. You don't want somebody to be able to walk in and just plug in and boom, they're on whatever network they've plugged into. This one, I think I covered in a little bit. There's a tool called NetDisco. I know it used to kind of be a pain in the ass to set up, but it would actually go through and crawl your network, and this was free too. It would go through and crawl your network, tell you what ports were open, what VLANs they were on, what MAC address and host name was hanging off of it, that kind of stuff. For the love of God, disabled SSL. Every few months, a new, newsworthy SSL vulnerability comes out. So just please switch to TLS. These are nice tools that will tell you if you're, well, the first one is to tell you if your SSL is vulnerable or not. And then the second one actually walks you through the steps of how to turn off SSL to make the web app or whatever more secure. Centralized logins. How about we don't use shared logins for, your core router? Setting up something like Tactics kind of gives accountability for whoever's fucking with your networking equipment. BitLocker and encryption. I guess that's kind of self-explanatory. You don't want, depending on, what type of company that you work for, you don't want financial data walking away when somebody, accidentally leaves their laptop open in Starbucks. So being able to handle encryption on end devices. Network device configuration backups. You don't want somebody to either accidentally fuck up something on your network device or maliciously do it, but being able to have those configuration backups will save you a lot of hassle in the long run, potentially. A lot of people forget about patching their Linux boxes, right? Because they've been on for years and nobody knows how to do anything Linux related in your environment anyways. So don't forget to patch your Linux boxes. And then regenerating SSH keys from default. Oh, that's it. That's my other part of my demo. How much time do I have? Oh, good. See, Babs, I'm only halfway done. So this is this is an SSH key, which you can also search for on Shodan. And people like to reuse these. Let's see if this works. Unless my phone died. 9% battery left. Yay! 144,000 using the same SSH key. I just thought that was a cool search that you could do on Shodan. Yay, Linksys routers. So I mean, exploiting that's a little difficult because you have to. It's like a man-in-the-middle attack type thing. I'm not the best red teamer. I'm not even close to being the best red teamer. But it's definitely a good thing to regen those. Removing unneeded software like Java and old versions of Adobe anything. There's what is it, Secunia, I think. You're not supposed to use corporately unless you pay for it, but we'll kind of tell you sometimes what that old versions of software are. But Java, just get rid of it. If you have to have it, patch it. Internet browsing from servers is fun. Having to tell, like application analysts that they're not supposed to be browsing and downloading stuff directly to servers is a step that you should probably take. That might not necessarily be easy depending on the people, but it's free. Like browsing from servers is a no-no. DNS servers and DCs should be just that. You don't want. We also had an instance where there was our website database backend was SQL located on our DC. So that's just asinine. That's another thing that should not be done. Logging successful logins. is best practice, and then your ILO settings. So a lot of people will leave ILO settings as default, but you know what? If somebody can get onto that ILO page and use the default username and password, who's to say that, you know, somebody didn't leave that server logged in, or, you know, I mean, you can do quite a bit of shit from the ILO page anyways. So there's I believe there's a Metasploit script that will go and look for certain ones, and be able to tell you, you know, what ILO pages you have as defaults. This is, I don't know if I have enough time to go too in depth with this. So DNS zone transfers, you don't want somebody to be able to transfer and download your entire DNS zone. Having open recursive DNS kind of leaves you open for DNS spoofing attacks. Open mail relay will get you blacklisted in a heartbeat when, you know, if anybody can send email from any email address they want out of your email server. I mean, there's a million of those out there. I think there's a public list that can give you open mail relays that you can just send whatever out of them, because there's some exchange admin that put their box on the internet that have no idea how to turn off that functionality. And then force advanced auditing. So ransomware is a huge thing lately, right? I just read a proposal on a book that's being submitted for my publisher too, that it's like deep dive into how ransomware works, what you need to do to protect your, not necessarily protect yourself against it, because, you know, ransomware is going to happen, but being able to detect on it early before it spreads. And doing advanced auditing will tell you that. I thought I had a screen capture for that too, but I can't find it. And don't forget your printers, because you don't want Nazi spam being printed to them. I heard from so many people that it's like when I started trying to write my Purple Team chapter, because all my background's in defense, right? So I don't know what a pen tester sees consistently when they go out and do their stuff. This was one of the main ones. Like, so many people forget the fact that, like, their printers have domain admin credentials in them. They get popped all the time. Like, that's something that just people don't even think of, right? Because it's not a computer. Why would we have to worry about that in our security program? That's why, because you don't want Weave to print stuff to it. So this is a screen capture in NetDisco. They've come a long way since I've used it last. It's been a couple years since I've used it, but this will actually crawl your network, right, and tell you, you know, what versions of iOS you have. It'll tell you, you know, it gives you a nice little pretty map that shows you, you know, where all your endpoints are as far as like switching and routing goes. And then it'll also give you like the MAC address, the host name, that kind of stuff, and you know, historical data. Snort and Splunk, I could do a whole thing on Snort and Splunk, but being able to alert on different things happening in your environment and be able to have the depth of being able to look into what's actually happening, right? Whatever logs you have going into it. And EMIT, it's the, I always get this wrong, Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit. Yes. Free, great tool. I know there's some bypasses around it, but you can basically just, TrustedSec actually has a really good blog about how to roll it out in mass to an environment. We did it by hand, which was a gigantic pain in the ass, but we had people that were a little gun shy when you roll out a software to, you know, 3,000 devices. It doesn't really break a whole lot. I've had it break, I should explain what it does first. Does everybody know what EMET is? Or have heard of it? So it'll kind of protect against O-Day related type activity, right? But why not use it? Like I recommend that for every Windows box, like Windows box at home, implement it. This could be a great first step on combating some of that stuff. And really low maintenance. So some software that you can do. URL scan will actually, it's something that you can install on IIS that will scan for or block malicious activity when it comes to like your websites. Fail to ban will do the same thing, kind of for Linux boxes like Apache and stuff that will automatically block that type of activity. Mod security, you can write different things for that will protect your Linux boxes, and then password management, which we kind of already covered. So free and not completely easy. Starting to purple team on your own network. Like once you've already gotten past all of those first stumbling blocks, when you're not running around putting out fires anymore, start to learn, the basics of red teaming, because you can't, for the most part, you can't hire, your own internal pen testing team. You're going to go out and you're going to contract with somebody, and they're going to come in once a year. But you want to be able to do other things in between then, at least in the beginning, right? And it's great for the skills of your team too, right? User education, I have a whole other talk on that. But putting out, like a rewards-based user education, a lot of people will kind of scoff at, my end users are stupid. We just need to protect against all the APTs. But they're your first line of defense. Them reporting something to you could catch it faster than any other tool could. Them being comfortable enough with your team to be able to tell you, this looks kind of weird. You can do that completely for free. It might be a culture thing where you have to, work at it a little bit. But why not? Like, security is a process. You need to do it in, security in depth. This is just another piece of the puzzle. Different local admin passwords. So how many times have we seen where there's just an image of either a PC or a server that just keeps on getting cranked out, right? The same local username and password. Maybe somebody else got access to that username and password, just, so what? The help desk gave it to this one lady so she could install some software. Right, but now she has the local username and password for all your servers too. So being able, there's I'm trying to think. There's a script or something out there that's been written that will actually go through and make each one unique. Thank you. Least privileges we kind of already covered. Application whitelisting. So a lot of people will do try and do application blacklisting, which doesn't work. It does for the one app that you've blacklisted, but how is it easier to try and figure out everything that you don't want running, or to figure out what you do want running? Because new shit, gets pumped out every day. There's no way you're going to be able to ever keep up with it. So being able, this is like application asset management, right? Being able to know what applications are running in your environment, so you can whitelist those and not have to worry about the rest. Doing canary in the coal mine. Something that was fun to set up, like before you know, somebody comes in and does a pen test, is like a SQL server that's out there with default credentials that you just alert the shit out of. Like nobody ever should be connecting to it. Nobody ever should be logging into it, but that's your canary in the coal mine, because if it dies, you know something is up. And for fuck's sake, asset management. I already covered that. So you don't have to be super elite to be doing red team stuff on your network. However, as unelite as I am, I did a mass scan once on a network and completely just tanked their networking equipment. Like it just died. Like all the VPNs went down. I won't say the name brand, but it's not the best networking equipment out there. So that's, I mean, that was one of my personal fails. Learning about Metasploit, there's a lot of really good information out there. You know, if you're just starting out, it's fun to play with. You can do a lot of really advanced shit from it too. But for the, I mean, for some beginning stuff, you can get in there and run some simple things too. In RAR, I think it's Python based. It'll actually scrape your network and give you screen caps of all the websites that are open and listening. And those two links, I'll put these slides up so you don't have to worry about trying to remember them or type them out for those watching at home. The top 5 ways that they can get domain admin access. So they have ways that you can protect against all the ones that are listed, like NetBIOS and link local, I don't know, LLMNR. It's like DNS poisoning, kind of. Secure compliance, right? All this shit that we just talked about can go towards being compliant. No, you don't want to just be, you know, a checkbox checker for compliance, but being able to do it securely is really important. I mean, I don't care which compliance standard that, you know, you have to comply with, but you know, being able to not just do the checkmark boxes and put some intelligent design behind it. So this is from Megamind. It's one of my favorite kids' movies. So I have 3 kids, and I don't get to watch much adult television. I watched this probably 5 million times, as children will do, just re-watching it. But this kind of explains really well the difference between red teaming and blue teaming. I mean, it's great that we're protecting all the things, but I mean, red teaming is just cooler. Oh, this goes back to the story I was talking about earlier, where, you know, our website backend, our public website backend tied into our domain controller, which also give the wireless their DHCP. So segmentation, also not easy sometimes to get off of a flat network. You know, when you have 5,000 devices on one VLAN, and it's on VLAN 1. Getting away from that takes a lot of planning. But, you know, after you've already started to do this kind of stuff, you're now going to have more time because you don't have as many fires to put out. Kind of talked about Active Directory. You can do delegation of rights, so you don't have to worry about all those domain admins. And then access control list between VLANs. Just kind of another step for protection. So all the really expensive stuff now. You know, if you've gotten to this point and you've done all of that free and easy and free and not really that so much easy, and if you don't have C-level buy-in at that point, just leave. Just forget. Just find somewhere else. No. But at that point, they'll know that you have done your due diligence, you know, go ahead and present to them, like, look at how far we've gotten, look at all this red shit over here is now all green and pretty, and we have time to actually focus on more design and more advanced, you know, more advanced things. Now, maybe they'll give you a little bit of money, you know, for a new Blinky box. Actually buying a real vulnerability scanner, not just cheating and using the trial. You know, once you show them the first results of the trial anyways, hopefully they'll say, holy shit, and that maybe we do need to spend a couple grand and actually give you a real vulnerability scanner. SIMs can be really, really super expensive, but I mean, that's the next step on alerting, you know, what's happening on the inside, what's coming in from the outside, that kind of stuff. Hiring somebody to do a professional pen test, not a vulnerability scan, because you've already done your vulnerability scan. Bless you, sir. And being able to know the difference between the two. A lot of people will sell vulnerabilities, will sell pen tests, but they're really vulnerability scans. At this point, you should already be able to do a vulnerability scan on your own. You know, if they're not showing you anything different than what you've found with it, it's definitely time to move to a different pen testing company. Two-factor auth, not just for your outside devices. You know, if you set it up so only certain people can log into your domain controllers, you know, make switch and router configuration changes, that kind of stuff, but use two-factor auth. It's going to save you in the long run. Passwords suck. You can't just use passwords anymore. I mean, we've proven this. How many times did things have to get leaked and, you know, databases of passwords everywhere? You don't want to just rely on passwords. So being able to implement two-factor auth in your organization is a good step too. And egress filtering. All outbound traffic should be filtered. It's kind of like least privilege, right? You don't want to just open it up and say, yeah, sure, you can FTP all of our stuff out. Why not? I guess that's not really a money thing. God, I really should have done a better job of going through these. You can do egress filtering if you already have your networking equipment, right? It might be a little bit difficult to get through though. And then all those APT related shiny, all the vendor stuff out there. You can, you know, if it seems to fit in your organization, go for it. And then getting organized. So IP address management, password safes. Doing tabletops and drills are really fun because it will tell you how unprepared you actually are. I did a tabletop the other day with a company. A month later, they had the exact same thing happen that happened in the tabletop, and they still fucked it up. Like, but I mean, they were more prepared after doing that tabletop than they would have been otherwise. And the link from before, and that's it. Oh my God, this is the first time I've given a talk to like the end of when I was supposed to give it to. Yes. Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
With your Microsoft environment, did you use Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer at all?
So the question was, with the Microsoft environment, did we use the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer tool? We did in the beginning, and then with any new technology that came out, like Windows Server 2012, when that came out, we would run it too. It gives, yeah, it's a good tool too. Yes.
Also, I'm just looking at that security compliance manager, Microsoft security compliance.
Security compliance manager. I haven't worked with it at all.
It's a way to basically like baseline your policy. So like baseline security.
Right. Yeah, there's and you said it was compliance manager that did that?
I told you that.
Okay, and then another thing that you can do, like NIST has some like baseline like already super hardened GPOs that you can download for everything. What? Stig? I have not used that. Oh, okay, so DoD GPOs. Yay, acronyms. There's so much out there.
But they can break internal all at the same time.
Well, I mean, you don't want to do that anyways. Like turning on a GPO that locks you out of accessing your GPOs. Like, why is that even a thing? Right, I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for showing up so early.